In this section, we're going to talk about how to solve quadratic equation. Quadratic meaning second degree. So if you are solving the second degree equation, uh, for example, 3x squared plus 2x plus 5 equals 0. This is called quadratic because the degree of this equation, the variable, the maximum is 2. Okay, so our goal is to solve equation like this. So there are different objectives we have in this section. We solve quadratic equation by factoring method and by using the zero product property. We solve quadratic equation by using the square root property whenever it's possible. And then finally, we use quadratic formula. Okay, so let's look at the quadratic equation first. Any quadratic equation can be formed by using this equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c could be any real number. But make sure that a is not 0. If a is 0, then this equation becomes a linear. Okay, so any equation of this form is called quadratic equation. This form is also called a standard form of quadratic equation. The first thing we would like to do is we want to solve quadratic equation by factoring and by using the zero product property. Zero product property means if two expression a times b is equal to 0, so this zero product property guarantees in real number system either a is 0 or b is 0 at least, or both of them could be 0. So what it means is if you multiply two non-zero expression, you cannot have 0. If the product is 0, that means at least one of them should be 0. That is called zero product property. For example, if you multiply 3 and 2, it's 6. It's not 0. But if you multiply 3 and 0, it's 0. So at least one of them should be 0. So let's start with one equation, 6x squared minus 17x plus 12, and we would like to solve this equation by using factoring method. So our goal is to find the factors on the left side, and for this I'm going to use AC method. Let's say this is your quadratic equation. For finding the factor, first of all find out a times c. That's your first step, a times c. So in this case, a times c is equal to, as you can see, that this is a, b is negative 17, and c is 12. If you compare this equation with the standard form, then a times c, as you can see, that it's 6 times 12, which is 72. That's the first step. The second step is find factors of this 72, two factors of 72, such that sum of that factor should be b. So the step 2 is find two factors of a times c such that sum of those factors should be equal to b. Okay, so now in our case we need to think about the two factors of 72 such that sum of those two factors should be negative 17. So the factors of 72, you can write down the 72 as there are different ways to write it down, so I'm going to just give you a couple of them. 72 times 1, 2 times 36, 4 times 18, or maybe 8 times 9, and maybe 24 times 3. These are the factors of 72. If you try to add these factors and also the negative, like negative 72 times negative 1, negative 2 times negative 36. So this is just a positive part. So you also have to look at the negative part as well. But our goal is to find out only, a pair of factors such that the sum of that pair is b. So if you look at these factors, if you try to find out the sum of these factors, 72 plus 1 is 73, 2 plus 36 is 38. 4 plus 18 is 22. 9 plus 8 is 17. But we are looking for negative 17. So instead of using positive 8 and negative 8, if I use negative 8, instead of using positive 8 and positive 9, if we use negative 8 and negative 9, which is also possibility, because negative 8 times negative 9 is also positive 72. So if I use negative 8 and negative 9, and if I try to find out the sum of this negative 8 and negative 9, I'm going to get negative 17. So that's why, those two factors for us here is negative 8 and negative 9. That's our step 2. So now the step 3 is, so now we have this these two factors such that the sum of this factor is negative 17. Now step 3 is, we are going to split this negative 17 as a negative 8 and negative 9. That's step 3. And step 4 is, we are going to factor out by using the grouping method. So that's what I'm going to do. Step 3, we are going to split this b as the sum of these two factors we found. So look at here, I can write it down this problem as 6x squared minus the 17x can be written as negative 8x, negative 9x, and it doesn't matter either you write 9x first and 8x next, it doesn't matter. So now we're just splitting, we're just rearranging this equation. Look at here, I'm not changing anything. I'm just rewriting this negative 17 as a negative 8 and negative 9. Why I'm doing that? So in that way I can now factor by using the grouping method. So grouping method means I would just make a group of, you know first two terms and the last two term, and I just factor out from here greatest common factor, whatever I can factor. So as you can see here, the greatest common factor, meaning the common thing between these two terms is 2 times x, and I can write down the leftover thing inside this parenthesis. If I factor out 2x from these two terms, then the leftover from here would be 3x, because 6x squared is actually 2x times 3x. Similarly, if I take 2x from here outside, the leftover thing would be 4, because 2x times 4 is negative 8x. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing from last two terms. So there is a negative sign, and the common thing or the common factor between 9x and 12 is 3 only, because 9 can be written as 3 times 3, 12 can be written as 3 times 4. I factor out this 3, and then now I'm going to write down the leftover thing from here. After taking 3 outside, the leftover would be 3x, because 3 times 3 is 9x. After taking 3 from 12, the leftover thing is 4. But keep in mind, because there is a negative sign and there is a positive sign, we need to change that sign. So because negative 3 times negative 4 only gives us positive 12. So now the good thing about this factoring by grouping method is it's going to give you the same common factor, one of the common factor, as you can see here. Now I'm going to factor out that 3x minus 4 and write down the leftover thing from first term, which is 2x, and then second term, which is negative 3. Now I go back here and use the zero product property, because this factor times this factor is equal to 0. By using the zero product property, I can write down either 3x minus 4 equals 0 or 2x minus 3 equals 0. So if we now our goal is to solve for x here. So for that, just add 4 both sides and then divide by 3. It's going to give you 4x equal 4 over 3. Similarly, add 3 both sides and divide by 2. It's going to give you x equal 3 over 2. So the solution for this quadratic equation would be either 4 over 3 or 3 over 2 or both of them. So that's by using factoring method, and for the factoring method we need to use the AC method, which means we need to find out the product of A and C, and then by looking that product we have to find out the factors of that product such that the sum of those factors should be equal to the B, and finally we split that B into two different number, that sum, and we use the grouping method. There is sometime if it's possible, there is another way to solve quadratic equation, that's called the square root property, but that's not always possible. We cannot use this. We can only use this if our equation is in this form, meaning there is x squared minus some constant equals 0. Then we can bring this constant to the right side and we can just take the square root both side. That means it gives us two solution, plus or minus square root of the constant. So let's see one example, you know one example where we are going to take three different cases. For the first one, it's easy. uh, we just bring 16 to the right side, so we can write down x squared equals 16. Now by taking the square root property, x would be plus minus square root of 16, which is 4. So there are two possible solutions for this equation, either plus 4 or minus 4. Before doing b, I'm going to do the part c. We can use the very same thing for x minus 1. This square root property can be used for any big expression as well. So if you have x minus 1 is square 7, you can write x minus 1 is plus or minus square root of 7. Now to find the value of x, we can just add 1 both side. By doing that, x would be 1 plus minus square root of 7. That means, like here, x is either 4 or minus 4. These are the two solutions. Similarly here, x is either 1 plus square root of 7 or 1 minus square root of 7. These are the two solutions. Now it's time to solve this one. To solve this middle one, first of all, we subtract 72 from both sides. And by doing that, it gives us 2x squared equal negative 72. Now we just divide both sides by 2. It gives us x squared equal negative 36. Keep in mind, we're trying to find out any real number x whose square is negative. But for any real number, either it's a 0 or any positive number or any negative number, if you take the square of that number, it should be always positive, or 0. For 0 it's 0. Other than that, for any negative number or positive number, square of that is always positive. But this statement, it's saying that we are looking for any real number x such that whose square is negative 36, but that is not possible, so no real solution. If you are interested to find imaginary solution, that is possible, but I'm not going to talk about that thing here. Okay, so for this kind of situation, there is no real solution. Finally, I'm going to talk about this quadratic formula for solving quadratic equation. So if you have this equation, you can always find the solution by using this formula. Sometime it might be real solution, sometime it might be non-real solution. So let's look at this problem here. Compare this problem with the standard form and use this formula. So I'm going to just write it down: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Compare with this equation, it gives us a equal 3, b equal 2, and c equal negative 2. And now the solution by using the quadratic formula is negative b plus and minus, meaning one time plus, another time minus, square root of b square minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. So we have to put the value of abc here and simplify it. So b is 2. So square root of b square means 2 square means 4, minus 4 times a is 3 and c is negative 2. So that negative and this negative from the formula becomes positive. 4 times 3 times 2 is 24. Divide by 2 times a is 3. So we just have to simplify this: negative 2 plus and minus. This is square root of 28. Divide by 2 times 3. If you factor, if you uh, simplify this one, it's actually 4 times 7. So 4 times 7 is it's square root of 4, square root of 7, and there is a 2 times 3. But square root of 4 means 2. So we can factor out that 2 from this expression on the top, and then we can write down negative 1 plus minus square root of 7 over 2 times 3. Look at here, I just factor out this 2 from here and here. Square root of 4 means 2. So by doing that, I can cancel this 2 and this 2 on the top and bottom. So now by doing that, I simplified the solution. So now my solution, there are two solutions: x equal negative 1 plus square root of 7 over 3. That's the first solution. And another one is x equal negative 1 negative square root of 7 divided by 3. So these are the two solutions that's possible by using the quadratic formula. Okay.